Tonight's guest is Ken. Ken, welcome to the show.
Hi, happy to be here.
Well, it's great having you. Ken, please give us a brief bio on yourself.
I'm Canadian. I grew up in northern Alberta. The last town before you hit the Northwest Territories border. So people who are listening from there, they know what I'm talking about. And I grew up on a small reservation about 135 kilometers east from there. That's where I grew up most of my life, and I know that area like the back of my hand, I guess you could say.
It sounds like a really remote area from the way you describe it.
Yeah, absolutely. It's even today, like even today, it's still very remote, and there's no lack of trees, that's for sure.
Yeah, sounds like a great place for dogmen to live, so that would explain a lot. You told us about growing up on the reservation there. You're a Cree, so you're not supposed to talk about your experiences like yours in public ways. Why did you decide to come on the show and do this?
It had to do a lot with my mother's passing. My mom was an educator and believed in being honest and being truthful to anyone. And over the past, since she passed away, I've been very vocal about a lot of things. I know it goes against tradition for our culture, but I believe this is going to be the last time I'm going to be telling this story. I told this story maybe about 4 or 5 times in my whole life, and this is going on the record. So I want to be honest and truthful on what happened during the event.
Well, honesty is always the best policy, and goes without saying, we're so glad that you are sharing this with us. We really appreciate it. Do the Cree have a name for dogmen?
Not really. There is a name that I can name, but even just saying it is it's not that it's taboo. It's just, it's scary to say it even out in the open and during the day. There is a name for it, but I don't want to say it.
Oh, no, I understand, and of course I respect that. Your experiences with dogmen stretch over the span of 25 years. Before that, did you even know about them?
I heard stories. From the elders. We used to have an event in school called Cultural Days, and they used to tell us stories about, the myths of our culture with Saki Jack and stuff like that. But we heard stories about dark figures that lived in the woods, and if you grew up in the woods, chances are eventually you will encounter something. I can't say what, but it's something.
Yeah, seems like that's the case almost no matter where you go when you've got a lot of forest the way you do. And that brings me to my next question. I'm wondering, do the Cree fear Sasquatch more than dogmen or vice versa?
I would say probably fear the dogman more. The reason being it's because, like you said, it's a lot of forest, a lot of dense forest everywhere, like where I grew up, and anything that is like that, I can say it can live anywhere. Like it's a 40 below in Celsius. It could be 35 above Celsius. It has a lot of places where it can hide and live and thrive. That's why there's not many farmers in that area, because attacks do happen.
Oh, well, that's not a good thing. Have you heard about any specific attacks, or just the fact that they happen?
Just the fact that they happen. Anything very specific. There was one, even I can't really verify it, but it was just I was a teenager then. I'd say back in 97, 98, there was something that was going around killing dogs on the reserve. And one Saturday morning, there was a black lab that went missing. It was a teachers, I guess I could explain this. Teachers that just got out of university college always come up there to come work to get work experience. And one teacher had a black lab. She always brought that black lab to school all the time. And that dog, and this was probably about 5 of us that found this dog. That dog was legitimately tore in half. Like, tore in half. It wasn't cut in half. It was torn. Like, something very, very, very strong picked up that poor dog and broke it in half and tore it in half. The top half of the dog was on top of the landing of the stairs. The bottom half we found in the small ravine a little ways from the house. And we thought it was a mountain lion, but mountain lions rarely come onto the reserve because they see one and then, somebody with a rifle would end up shooting it. But until this day, we still don't know what it was. I believe it was the Dogman. That's what I think.
You just might be right about that. And I don't need to tell you, mountain lions don't tear dogs in half like that. They might bite them and rip them up, but never tear them in half.
Yeah, and I'm a hunter, so I know my bears, I know my wild animals, and there's nothing I can really say an animal that can do that.
Definitely not. Your first encounter happened in a place called High Level. What can you tell us about the place?
Oh, High Level. It's a small town. It used to be a thriving oil and gas town. It is about our capital city in the province is about 8 hours south of High Level. It's legitimately the last town you're going to hit before you drive onto the Northwest Territories border. Like it's very, very remote. A lot of trees, and it's not just the Cree up there. There's other tribes. There's the Dene, the Bushy, and just about everybody in between. Actually, it's a very, very small town. Everybody knows everybody there.
Yeah, that's how it normally goes with remote places like that. You're with your brother when it happened. What can you tell us about him?
My brother. We grew up together on the reservation. He is actually my adopted brother. He lost his mother to cancer when we were teenagers, and through ceremony and being Cree, he asked my mom to finish raising him. So that's how he's my brother today. But before that, we were best friends. We've been friends since 1989. I mean, thinking about it now, in hindsight, that's a long time. But yeah, he's not the kind of guy that would lie to you straight to your face. He's a very practical person, straightforward. He doesn't beat around the bush. He tells it the way he sees it. And he talking about this, about the event that happened. He pretty much kept it to himself. He didn't really want to share about what happened. And I don't blame him. I had asked him before coming on to the show. I said, "You're comfortable with me talking about this?" And he said, "Yeah." He said, because he said, he feels super uncomfortable talking about it. So he said, "Better you to do it." I was like, "Okay, no problem."
Well, it goes without saying, I'm so glad you two have such a good relationship. And just like you, he sounds like a good man to me.
Yeah, he's a great person.
All right, Ken, please tell us about your encounters now. Give us every last detail that comes to mind.
Okay, so the first encounter, has happened 1999, the winter of 1999. The reservation I grew up on, there's another one east of it. It's called Fox Lake, excuse me. And my dad, that's the reservation my dad grew up on. And went to that evening. I just got off school. I was 16. Yeah, I was 16. And my parents were like, "Hey, come with us. Let's go for a ride to Fox Lake." So we did. Went to go see some family, and like I said, I had the only way to get there at the time. I don't know about like now. You can go there at any time of the year. Like there's you drive onto a ferry, and you can get driven across on the ferry. Whereas back then it was winter access road, so we had to drive across the Peace River in the winter on like 14, 15, I don't know how thick the ice is. Like it's super thick, and we had to drive across. And in the winter time, there's more access roads, so there's like 3 or 4, I believe. I believe there was like 3, and we always took this one road down Highway 58, and we had to cross a small creek called Winslow Creek. And then you drove another 10 kilometers, and you had to drive across the Peace River and into Fox Lake. Anyway, the encounter. We were on our way back from Fox Lake. This is the same road that we took, and we got to this. Is a junction. You go southbound, it'll lead you to another road, and you go straight, it'll lead you to Highway 58, the road that we always take. And then there was another road. It looks like it just kind of led to a large opening. So my dad got turned around. He's like, I don't know which way to go. Mind you, it's snowing hard, big flakes, a lot of snow coming down. And my mom looked at my dad and said, well, let's try this way. So this is to the big opening, a big clearing. So we drove into the big clearing, and there was an older car, maybe kind of looked like a Monte Carlo, maybe something similar to that. So we pulled up, and my dad just had this feeling to stop. And I was like, I looked at him. I was like, so why are we stopping? Maybe this is not the right way, he said. And then a pair of eyes at the front of the car, like we're looking at this car from behind. A pair of eyes opened up. A pair of eyes, the best way, they're like amber colored, was looking straight at us, and is dark. Like, when you shine a light, it's so dark how you shine a light, the light just gets swallowed up by the dark. And then those eyes start drifting into the tree line. Not drifting, but like when somebody's staring at you, and you could see like a figure, like a very dark, it's super dark figure. You could see it, the eyes were bobbing, and then the eyes and the figure went into the tree line. And all 3 of us looked at each other, me and my parents, and I said, okay. I said, we should just get out of here. So my dad, without any hesitation, backed up the truck. We picked another road. Thankfully, it was the one that led to Highway 58, and we made our way home. Now, we got home, and I just looked at my dad. I'm like, what did we see? And he said, I think we seen something that didn't want to be seen. And he never elaborated after that. Like, years went by. We never talked about it, really, until, I'd say probably about 10 years later, we talked about it. And yeah, that was my first encounter. This is the last time I'm telling this story. And I want it on the record that I'm not telling this story after this. This is the final time I'm going to tell it. I got no inclination to lie about what I seen. So I'm going to say what I saw. It was the evening of May 2nd. I know this because this May 2nd was my birthday. And I had to drive my grandparents home. I drove from Edmonton, as I said earlier, 8-hour drive. Drove up to High Level with my grandparents. Dropped my grandparents off at my auntie's place. And they still wanted to go home that night. They just wanted to stop there and go see her and, just go see her, go see my auntie and my uncle. I went and see my brother My little brother was with me during the 8-hour trip. My brother, the one I was talking about earlier, I went to his house and we were visiting and talking about, I don't know, our plans for the night. It was my birthday. He said we should go out to the pub and go enjoy ourselves. I'm like, I don't know. I said, I'm just kind of want to drive the grandparents home and come home and sleep. And he was like, come on, man, let's go do something. I was like, I'm not really into it right now. I said, how about we just drive them home? So my grandma calls me and she's, I'm ready to get picked up. Come pick up me and grandpa and drive us home to Boyer. My grandparents lived in a small reservation between High Level and the one I grew up at. It's called Boyer River. And she lived by like around farmers and stuff like that. So there's like fields and tree lines and fields and country roads. So it wasn't nothing like a goat trail roads like where I grew up. And so I picked her up and asked my brother, say, okay, come with me. I said, let's go drive him home. So we did, made the trip. She lived about 40 minutes east of High Level, down Highway 58. And there's a turnoff. There's actually, because it's like a lot of farmers, so there's like a lot of ways to get there, to get to her house. So we had one specific way. It was the fastest. And drove in, took her back. And I was just bringing her clothes in and stuff she bought and her groceries. And I asked, it was probably about 11:30 that night. And anybody who's growing up in the northern part of Canada, like, Canada's already north, but I mean further north, during the spring and summer, it never gets dark. Even already in May, like, it'll be dark for maybe about 4.5, maybe 4.5, 5 hours. So it's kind of like dusk, basically. You can still see things from a distance, like if you have a flashlight and stuff. And my grandma said to me, so my nosim, which means my grandchild in Cree, be careful when you go home tonight. And I said, why is that? She said, just be careful. And she handed me a bottle of wild turkey. I think it's bourbon. I think it's whiskey. I'm not really, I don't drink alcohol really. So she gave me a bottle. She's like, you might need this when you get home. So I was like, well, whatever. So I put it in a bag. I put it in my trunk. I told my brothers, like, all right, we're going. So we left. And it was probably about midnight, a little after 12. We were talking about just whatever stuff. We're talking about like the latest video games. We're talking about the postseason. We watch hockey. Just general things we're just discussing. And that's when everything went dark. I know it sounds cliche, but everything legitimately went dark. You couldn't see because normally late at night at that time of the year, you can still see the horizon. You can still see the northwest where the sun is. You could see the horizon lights up, and we couldn't see it. Now, the section of road, and years later, I had asked my mom, like, how haunted is this road? She's like, oh, you'll see things you don't want to see. That's all she said. She didn't elaborate, but I seen things that I didn't see. Well, I didn't want to see, sorry. And so it got dark. Couldn't see the horizon. I just looked at my brother. I'm like, what's up with this? And he goes, I don't know. He's like, how fast are you going? I looked down and I'm doing 100 kilometers. There's not really that many deer in the area where I grew up. Like, there's probably more predators than there is deer. So seeing a deer is very uncommon, and you're more likely to see a wolf or a bear or a coyote or something that's not a deer. So I dropped a gear. I drove a manual transmission. I dropped a gear and then I went down to about 80 kilometers. looked at my brother. I was like, so I'm going to slow down. So just in case something jumps out at us, I said to him, and he's like, hey, he's like, don't say that. And as I said that, I looked up, like, straight at the highway as we're going westbound. There's a light. A light legitimately came down from thin air, like nowhere. It was a soft light. It wasn't a beaming light. It was like, it was a really soft light. And that light, is the best way I could explain it. It's like somebody took a hammer, hit that light, and then stuff started pouring out of it. And that's the best way I can explain it. And I started slowing down even more, took the car out of gear, put it in third, and I was just like, I looked over at my brother, I was like, okay, he's like, you seeing that too? And he's like, yeah. He's like, he's like, step on it. So I sped up, kicked it in fourth. We're doing about 80, 85. And as that light just faded away, and there it was on the driver's side of the road, a tall figure. And it had the face of a dog. Had the body, it was bipedal. So it stood on two legs. It had arms. It had hands. And these hands, like the skin of the hands, I always remember the hands because it reminded me of a raccoon. If you ever see a raccoon's hands, how they are, they're like small palms but long fingers, I guess you can say. But the way it stood up and looked at us, and I asked my brother, I was like, do you remember this thing grinning at us? He said, yeah, it grinned at us. And I was like, and I do remember now, it kind of had like, it showed its teeth. I don't know, it showed its teeth, it's grinning. And this thing got down on four feet forward on all four limbs and ran across, not towards the car, but just literally ran across. And I swear on my mom's grave that I hit it. Oh, so I looked at my brother. He's like, go, 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 go. He just kept on saying, go, go, go. And my brother never panics. This guy is cool as a cucumber. When he panics, I panic. So again, I still had it in fourth gear and I stepped on it till I couldn't go any faster and I put it in fifth gear. And then we could see the horizon again. But during that time, and I always remember the smell if you ever grew up around a swampy area, the smell of muskeg in the summertime, it smells like rotten flesh. Putrid smell. It's when you smell it, you cannot get it out of your mind the way it smells, and that's exactly how it smelled when that thing went under the car, like in front and under. I believe and that's where we're gonna. I was like, we gotta stop. I said, we gotta stop. And he's like, okay. He said, stop at the gas station. So there was a gas station called Chaw Services, and it's on just off the highway on another reservation. We pull in, and then I get out, and first thing I do is I spark up a cigarette. I'm just shaking, and I'm like wondering and pacing, and I'm like, oh my goodness, this is can't believe what I just seen. And my brother looks at me, you can't believe it. He's like, let's go check your car. So we went behind my car. I had an old Dodge Neon, like an 03 little Dodge Neon. At the time was the recession. I needed something cheap to get around in, so I just bought this car. And if you ever seen a Dodge Neon, the back bumper is all one big piece, and there was hair stuck between the fender where the top of the tire is, and then right where the bumper meet, there's a little seam, a little opening, and there was hair, like coarse hair. for anybody who's hunted, if you ever shot a bear or a buffalo, when you're taking the fur off of the hide, and you know how thick it is, like it's so thick that you could thread a needle. But the smell, the musky smell off of it was horrible. It was just, it was like rotting flesh. It smelled so bad. So I went and grabbed the windshield wash. Is a small windshield wash bucket there. Grabbed it and I threw it on my car. Like it was so bad the smell was in my car. So I just threw it all on the car there, and I was just kicking that little spot so anything else was stuck under there. Tried my best to get that smell out, but I was looking at the hair and I just I gotta wash my hands, and so I took a water bottle, washed my hands, and I looked at my brother and I said, "Okay, man, this is should we tell anybody about this?" He goes, "You think they'll even believe us?" I said, "Yeah, I don't know." I said, "Maybe." I was like, "I can't tell you, man." I said, "But I can't tell you what I saw, but I can tell people what I see." He's like, "Yeah." So we kept it under wraps for a couple of years. Less than a handful of people know about what happened. We made our way back, and I got to my parents' place, and I just, it was something. That ball of wild turkey, yeah, it was wild turkey. I remember. I didn't drink it. I just left it on the table. I was gonna open it, and I was just like, I don't know. I just left it there. I remember giving it away to somebody, but made me think now about what my grandma said. My grandma said, "You might need it. Be careful out there. You never know what you're going to see." Anyway, yeah, that's what happened. That was the event.
Wow, that's a night you're never going to forget. Neither will your brother.
No.
Yeah, I'd say not. You feel that in a way having these Dogman encounters was a good thing. Please expand on that for us.
Yeah, my dad was a traditionalist. He's heavily believes in the old ways. And at the time I didn't know, I was young and I wasn't really confident in myself. But since the encounter in the event in 2009, I have a better handle on dealing with things that are, people don't have a better handle on them. Not just dealing with paranormal, but with situations where you have to step up and do the right thing, make an executive decision. Dealing with difficult things in your life, ever since that event in 2009, I can handle it more. I can deal with it. And my dad told me, "Son, that encounter, what you've been through," he said, "whatever it was," he said, it tested your mettle, tested you. And if you can encounter that and deal with it, he said, there's things in life that are going to be coming up in your life. He said, you are going to be able to deal with, not easier, but you can deal with it with confidence. And at the time when it happened, I didn't believe in it. It's like, what's this old man talking about? I don't believe what he said. But now, as I'm getting older, yeah, I think about that time, that encounter, that event, and then I think about the things that came through in my life in the last 15 years. It's like, yeah, I can handle it. But that don't mean I'm going to go looking for it. Like, that's the difference. Sometimes the unknown will just show up and show its face, and some days some people can handle it, some people can't. But I don't go out of my way to go look for it. If it shows up on my doorstep, I'll deal with it accordingly, but I'm not going to go hunt for it.
I'm glad you're not. You told your wife about your encounters, and before you did that, you didn't think she was going to believe you. Why so?
I didn't think she was going to believe me because my wife is a very, she's a factual person. She needs to see the facts. She needs to see the numbers to believe it in order to really grasp of just about anything in her life. But at the same time, she's a really devout Christian person. She heavily believes believes in the word of the good word of the Bible and all that business. And when I did tell her, I was just like, I was ready for ridicule. Like, I was like, okay, here we go. Like, she's gonna tease me and stuff. She wholeheartedly believed me, and she said, told me that's the most, like, she knew it was a genuine. I was genuinely telling the truth. She just knew, and not because she loved me, and not because she was my wife, and not because we were friends, but she said, I felt it, that your words are true. And over the years that we've been together, I told her that story every once in a while when we're traveling or we're just sitting and having a coffee and having a conversation. And I tell her about the time, what I saw. And before I came on to your program, she said, your story never changed. And I said, why would it change? I said, I don't need to add embellishments. I don't need to add things that are unnecessary. I said, this is as truthful as I can tell it. And yeah, that's when, she truly believes even today, like she still believes that my encounter is very real.
Your wife sure sounds like a keeper to me. You're a lucky man.
Yeah, she's amazing.
She sure sounds like it. When you had that encounter in 99 and watched those eyes disappear into the tree line, how far were they from your car?
I would say a power pole's length, so about between 40 and 60 meters in that area. But one of the details I do remember though is it was an incline, it was a grade. It wasn't very steep, but how the car was parked, it was that car was facing upwards, and it wasn't by much. It wasn't a very steep grade. That's when we knew, because that's when we knew it was something, because behind it, you would not be able to see trees behind it, just the sky. And it was snowing off and on that night. It was snowing lots. It was snowing very hard. Then it was snowing a little bit. Then it was snowing. Then it was just blowing snow. But I remember the snow. It was very pliable. We call it wet snow. Where you can make a snowman out of it. It's a very pliable snow. So the tracks, when the snow is pliable, the tracks, you can hear, it makes a very distinct sound. It's not quite a crunching sound. It's like when your shoes are wet and you're walking on a floor, it makes like a squeaking sound. And my mom, God bless her, she was a heavy smoker, so I had to roll my window down and you can hear the footsteps. And then I asked my dad, like, you hear that? He's like, yeah, kinda, sorta. And we had the heat blasted, obviously, because we were trying to keep the windshield from freezing up. But yeah, I always like, we didn't go looking after. We just backed up and backed out and left. And I'm glad that my dad made that decision.
Oh, I bet you are glad. Yeah, I don't blame you. Do you think your inability to see it very clearly was due to how heavy the snow was coming down, or how dark it was?
So I do have a question for you, Vic. When you look up in the sky, you notice that you can't see a star, but when your eyes are away from that star, you can see it.
I do.
It's exactly like that. When you don't look at it directly, you can't really make out what you saw. But when you look away at your peripheral, there was a mass of something there. I'm not going to say it was bipedal or not, but it was just a mass. Like, it was just like some kind of like a cowl or a veil around it. I guess that's the best way I can explain it. So when you looked at it directly, yeah, you couldn't really see the details of it. But when you look away, yeah, it was there.
No, that makes sense. That's one of the peculiar things about our vision as humans. Somehow, your night vision is better when you're not looking directly at something. Just like you talked about, if you look away from something of interest, just look away a little bit. In a lot of cases, you'll be able to see it better than if you're looking right at it. I don't understand it, but yeah, I've noticed that before myself. Your dad told you that what you saw must not have wanted to be seen. Did anyone ever tell you that it was bad luck to see a dogman?
It was, in general, in our culture, it's bad luck to see anything that's not supposed to be seen. Dogman or the other thing that I don't want to say what it is. Spirits in general. Because spiritually, these spirits that come out, we don't know their intentions. We don't know if it's going to bring good luck to you and your family, or if it's going to put a curse on you, or if it's, it just wants to say hi. The intentions of the seeing these things are, yeah, we don't know what they are. That's why they're very not as often as talked about or even openly talked about among our people.
Oh, no, I understand, and of course I respect that. You told us that your grandmother knew that you were going to have that second encounter before it even happened. How do you think she knew?
My grandma knew a lot of things that she never told us, like let on. She grew up in a very remote area as well, like where she grew up, and she always used to tell us stories about the paranormal, about seeing and hearing things in the kitchen, and this is the one that she told me about a dog that they found up in the tree. A dog's, yeah, that's the one that really got me, is that a dog had climbed a tree and they had to put it down because that dog was possessed. And I always told her, like, I mean, I was like, I was young and stupid. I mean, not young. I was young and naive, and I was like, that's just story stuff. Like, that, I don't believe it. But all these things that she told us when we were kids about the paranormal, like, I didn't want to believe it because it's too far fetched. I'm a very practical person. It's a little too far-fetched, and I do respect the values of people's cultures and my culture in general, but I just jokingly giggled about it until the event that I just told you what happened back in 2009.
Well, the world is a happier place to live in when you don't believe in things like that, but unfortunately they're real. They're out there, and you know that now.
Yeah.
You do. You didn't see that dogman when you had the second encounter until after you saw that strange light. Do you think the two might have been connected somehow?
I do believe it. That was way too, it had to be. It had to do something with the dogman. Because that's just something that just doesn't occur naturally, even in nature. And I spend a lot of time in the wilderness. I'm a hunter. We go hunting, me and my dad, I go hunting with my friends. I've seen a lot of questionable things out in the wilderness, but that And, drone technology wasn't a thing back in 2009. So it had to do something with a Dogman. It had to be. And I don't want to know more about it, but I know it had to do with it.
I'm sure it's not lost on you that quite a few eyewitnesses have reported seeing things like that before they had their encounter, so yeah, it probably was connected. You notice fairly intricate details about that Dogman's hands. That means that you must have been pretty close to it at the time. How close were you?
I would say I'll use feet because for your American listeners, it came in terms of feet. It was probably, so I was driving about 60 kilometers an hour. And I know my speeds because I'm also a truck driver. So I was doing about 40 kilometers an hour, close to 30, 40. And it came up on us. I'd seen it right where the light is out. So that's about 40 feet. And when it got on all four to run, that's when I seen its hands as it was walking towards the middle of the road. I seen its hands before it got on all fours and dashed across the road. And like I said, it's long fingers but small palms like a raccoon. And you could, like, under the palms would be, like, it was, the skin was black, like not like black, like almost like rubber, like a matte black. It wasn't shiny. It was just like a matte black. Then and the tips of the fingers weren't like what you see like in pop culture werewolf where there's like long fingernails, right? But remember the nails were almost like how our nails are, like they were flat, but they were longer. Yeah, I do remember that because when it got on all fours, when the hand touched the pavement, this is kind of, I remember the hand got wider, like it widened out, kind of like a duck. When a duck walks on his feet, its feet widen out just like that. It wasn't. I'm not saying it was webbed, but its hands widened out and dashed across the road, and we hit it because there was hair in the smell, my goodness, I'll never forget that smell ever.
That must have stunk pretty bad. Sounds like it left an impression on you, and understandably so. Listening to you describe how its hands looked when it went down onto all fours, if I have you correctly, does that mean that when it went down onto its hands, that it wasn't on its knuckles, its fingers were out straight, and it was on its palms?
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. Because with claws like that, if you knuckle them under, that could cause all sorts of problems.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes sense. What I don't understand is, of all the directions it could have gone, it ran right in front of your neon. Do you think it wanted you to hit it?
It wanted to be known. That's the conclusion my brother got. It wanted us to know that it's out there.
Well, it definitely gave you an education on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd say it did. It sounds to me like you never did see it after you ran over it. Is that accurate?
Yeah, after the event, the next part from that's when it solidified what I seen. But physically, no, never seen it. I've seen other things, but not that.
Did you ever check the rear view after you ran over it?
No, I was way too terrified to look back. I just, like I said, I picked up gears and I got out of there right to child services. I did not look back in my mirror.
Well, I can't fault you for that. After you did run over it, you said you went to that gas station to check your car. How far was that gas station from where you hit it?
I was doing about, I was in fourth gear. So 80 kilometers by like 5 minutes away.
Oh, that's still pretty close. Did you have your head on a swivel in case it was able to follow you?
No, I kept my eye on the road because, again, like the area was dark, like unnaturally dark. And my brother kept on looking in the review mirror, looking around. And, like I told you earlier, he's a solid dude. He never panics, and this man panicked. And when he panics, like I panic, and it's not a good thing.
Yeah, well, have an experience like that, and it will tend to make you panic, even if you're pretty stout and a pretty calm customer. You told us about the fur that you found after you did stop, but was your car damaged at all?
No, that's the thing that got me. I was expecting so Dodge Neon, it's a front wheel drive car, so the back is sitting on, like these smaller frames, like these they're not very well built car. And I went looking under there, like I know my way around a vehicle, fixed a lot of vehicles. I'm a backyard mechanic. I'm not a certified mechanic, backyard mechanic, but I looked around under it, around it. That was the only spot that had the fur, was in that seam between the bumper and the back panel, like the back part of the car, like on the sides of the trunk, like right there, like that seam. That's the only place I found it. When I looked under my car, like under the back tire, the passenger side, nothing, no damage. There was nothing wrong with it. And after the next day, I washed my car, but I was expecting to see more hair or like anything like fall out from under the undercarriage. Nothing. It just left that little bit of hair.
That's awfully strange, but not exactly unprecedented. Over the years, I've spoken with several eyewitnesses who have hit these things, run over them, and when they stop and get out to check, no damage. I don't know what's behind that, but it might point towards them being supernatural beings, which that brings me to my next question, which is, do you think that's what they are?
Me personally? Absolutely. Absolutely, 100%. The best way I could say it is what my grandfather always said is the unknown. Like, if we were meant to know about it, it would be right in front of us. We would have access to it, touch it, taste it, smell it. That thing had to be supernatural. Had to be.
I think you're right. That would explain a lot of the things they do. It would explain all that neatly. So, I agree. In 2016, you found out that your uncle had an encounter, more than likely with the Dogman. Was he still alive in 2016 when you found out about his experience?
Yeah. Yes. And I had spoken to him. My uncle is my mom's younger brother. And so what happened, we're at a funeral. My mom's sister passed. And after the service and everything, we have like a big get together. We cook, we sit down, we laugh, we share stories about the person who's passed. My mom is Métis, so she's they have their own tradition. Apart from being like Cree, I'm Cree, but my mom's Métis. And we had a big dinner, probably like 150, 160 people. And everybody loved my auntie. She was a great person. And my mom, she was a social butterfly among her family, and she would walk around and talk to everybody. She loved everybody, and everybody loved my mom. And my wife was standing right beside me. And this is exactly what happened. My wife was standing beside me, and I was talking to my sister and my niece, and my sister said, "Where are you going?" It's like, "I'm going to get ready. I'm going to go home." She's like, okay, well, it's going to get late. And I said, what are you doing? She's like, I'm staying in high level for the night. Then we're going to go home tomorrow. So then my mom walks over and she's smiling and laughing. I was like, you okay, Mom? She goes, yeah. She's like, oh, your uncle. So my little brother is so silly. And I was just like, oh, well, what happened? I said, what did he do? And my uncle was, he'd tell a good joke and we'd laugh and have a good time. He's funny. But my mom was like, she's laughing. And she put her hand, I remember, she put her hand on my shoulder. She said, and I never told my mom about the event in 2009. I never told her ever. And I never told her till after. And your uncle told me a silly story. I was like, oh yeah, what's it about? Oh, he's seen this giant dogman with a white face run across the road just outside of Chaw Services one night. But by Rocky Lane? Even just saying that right now, just whew. But yeah, and my heart sank. I looked at my wife. I had told my wife already, so she knew about it. And my wife, her face just dropped, and she looked at me. And my mom goes, "What, man? What's wrong?" I'm like, "Nothing. Nothing." I said, "We're gonna get ready. We're gonna go home." You sure you want to go home? It's freezing rain. I'm like, I'll be fine. So I'm gonna just go home. Not feeling good. So she hugged me and she's like, okay, well, I love you. I said, I love you too. I went out to the parking lot and I see my uncle there. He was having a smoke and I pulled up to him. It was just me and him. My wife was inside, shaking hands, hugging people. I was just talking to him. So my mom told me about you seen something down by Rocky Lane there. And he's like, yeah. Holy smokes, nephew. He said, that thing was tall. Probably 8, maybe 10 feet. He said it just had hands. He said just black hands. It ran across the road, and he's like, I ran it over. I had to run it over. And he had a lifted truck. I remember he had a lifted Chevy, and it's a big truck. It's a diesel. It's a Duramax. I was thinking that thing would have plowed. He probably ruined the front end if he plowed right into it. He said he'd ran across. He swerved to the driver's side of the lane, I would say to the left side of the lane, onto oncoming traffic. There was no traffic, mind you, but onto the oncoming traffic side of the road. And he said, I thought I hit it. I said, did you go look around your truck to see if you hit it? He's like, yeah, I went looking around. He said, I didn't see nothing. I said, but he said, smelled bad. He said, it smelled like when you go on a hunt and you leave the meat out too long. He said, before you skin the moose or your kill, when you leave it out too long, he said, it smells like that. And I asked him, I said, you think, was it how did the face look? I asked. Was it white or a cream color? He said, no, it was it was a white, he said, a eggshell white looking face. I said, did it show its teeth? He said, yeah, just the front. He said he had 2 teeth sticking out in the front, but it ran. He said it ran just really like a person who got down on all 4 limbs and ran across the road. And I said, yeah. I said, I seen that years ago. I said, back in 2009, I took grandma home. Grandma, it's his mother. So I took grandma home to back to Boyer. I said, me and my brother seen that. And he was like, really? He said, I just heard stories about it, but I didn't think it was real. I said, well, it sounds like it's pretty real if you and me seen it. And he said, who knows? Maybe other people seen it. Did you ask around? I said, yeah, that's gonna look good on me going asking around. Hey man, did you see a big 12-foot dog man walking around the bushes? So you know how ridiculous that would sound? And he laughed. He said, "It ain't ridiculous if you actually seen it and it's real." I said, "Yeah." Well, I don't know. I said, I told him I don't know if I'll even bother telling anybody else. Nobody's going to believe me anyway. Yeah. Well, that's what I saw. He gave me another cigarette, gave me a hug. He said, "I love you, nephew." He said, "You take care of yourself. We're going to head home." I said, "Yeah, I'm going to head home." But yeah, that's what he told me.
I don't know, Ken. Sure sounds to me like Dogman encounters run in your family.
Yeah, I don't want to see it again.
I'll bet you don't. I hope you don't also.
Here's the thing. I'm not saying it's exclusively down Highway 58, but I used to work in the oil and gas section, like the oil and gas industry. I did fracking, I did cementing, I worked for big companies, and some of our work took place at night. Like, we would get a phone call, be like, "You have to be at this drilling rig at 2:30 in the morning. Be ready at midnight." Like, I would be out there working late at night. My point is, in all those times I worked in the oil and gas industry where I was working super late, I have never encountered anything like that. I seen moose, I seen bear, I seen a duck attack another duck. Like, I seen just, animals, but nothing like this ever. So I don't know. Like, I never seen anything like that during my time of traveling to work, to and from, late at night. That was the only time as was up there. I'm not saying the Dogman is in Canada only; it's exclusively up there. But I don't know. I can't really say much on that.
Well, sounds to me like you saw some pretty unusual things while you were driving and doing that, but no Dogman. Thank goodness for that.
Yeah.
Speaking of that, in 2022, you were hauling a load when you found out about another man having a Dogman encounter. What's the story behind his encounter?
Oh, yes. So this is in 2022. I was hauling fuel to small communities. Winter, they run on propane, some run on diesel. That's like the only way they can get their furnaces going. And I was hauling and listened to a podcast. I'm not going to name the name of the podcast. It has to do just paranormal stories. I was on my way back home, back to my house. I'm back to the yard, sorry. And I heard this one podcast, and it was a Dogman encounter. It wasn't this podcast specifically, it was a different one. But this Dogman encounter, this guy was basically almost the same thing happened to me without the weird light that came down. Just a tall, white-faced, black hand Dogman ran across his vehicle, and he thought he hit it, but he didn't. And I was just like, oh man, I was just thinking like, okay, I told somebody told somebody, basically telephone, the telephone game, and somebody heard my story and they're putting it out there and I'm being mocked. But this specific encounter that happened in 1987 in Connecticut. I believe it's Connecticut. But it happened back in the 80s. In 1987, like, I was just barely walking and talking. And so I saved that podcast, that episode. I've never spoken to my brother for a couple of years. He was busy doing his own thing. We're still, it's my brother. I talk to him. It's not, sometimes we just don't communicate. We're busy with our life, and sometimes it goes a couple of years before we even say anything to each other. But anyway, I called him and I said, hey, I'm going to send you a link to something. I want you to listen to it from this time to this time. So I want you to get back to me. And he said, what's it for? I said, let's listen to it. Trust me. Okay. So he did. Not even an hour later, he phones back. He said to me, those things are over there as well. I said, they must be. They must have always been here. I said, Connecticut to where we're from, thousands and thousands of kilometers away. And he said, he asked me, he's like, do you think other people know about this? What do you mean? He said, do you think other people know about what we saw? Maybe they have a better understanding of what it is. And I said, maybe. And he's like, why you hesitate? I said, look, I got a decent reputation. I said, I don't want to go out there and start saying that, oh man, I seen the Dogman, and they're going to call me crazy. Like, what if I have to go deal with a customer and they're going to look at me like, oh, aren't you the guy who talked about the Dogman? And, at the time, I was more worried about my image to other people. But now, when I found this podcast that where I'm talking to you from, I had to tell I had to share with what I seen. And I don't, not just owe it to me, I owe it to my brother and also my mom. And best to be truthful about it.
Well, it goes without saying, we're glad you decided to come on and share your experiences. We really appreciate it. And to address what you said a moment ago, these things are so widespread, it's not even funny. Well, it's about time for us to get out of here, Ken, but before we do you have any closing comments you'd like to share?
Yeah. Don't doubt yourself on what you see and should you encounter a Dogman or anything paranormal. Like, don't doubt yourself. I mean, I understand that the human psyche can be manipulated through other illicit means. However, if you believe what you saw, what you saw, don't be afraid to tell somebody that you know for a fact that will believe you, because you never know. Like, me telling this might actually help somebody either cope or might help them come out to tell their side of things of what they've seen.
Well, those are good words. Ken, I can't thank you enough for coming on and sharing the details of all these experiences with us. I really appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And if I could ever help you in the future, please let me know. But having said that, thanks again so much for your time and have a great night.